Food bloggers, hi, how are you today? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Eat Blog Talk podcast. This is the place for food bloggers to get information and inspiration to accelerate your blog's growth and ultimately help you to achieve your freedom, whether that's financial, personal, or professional. I'm Megan Porta. I have been a food blogger for 13 years, so I understand how isolating food blogging can be. I'm on a mission to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, let each and every food blogger, including you, know that you are heard and supported. Talk about an inspiring interview. Dee Rotman from D Sweets joins me in this interview to talk about how she grew her food blog really fast. She started it in April of 2024. It is currently beginning of June 2024, and she has made a lot of progress in that time. Her strategy might not be what you think it is, too. She started with a heavy presence on social media, specifically Instagram. She really worked to establish that following and then launched her blog, and it has worked out really well for her. She also talks about her plans to grow as she goes forward into this new blogging venture and how to just keep all of the balls spinning in the air in a sustainable way. We also talk about mindset in this episode because that is a huge component for just keeping up with everything. As I talk about on this podcast all the time, it's truly a vital piece of this whole food blogging puzzle. I think you will be really inspired by this episode, whether you've just started a blog, or maybe you're thinking about starting a blog, or maybe you're just like 2 years or 3 years into starting your blog. It's still going to be very inspiring. So give it a listen. It's episode number 572, sponsored by RankIQ. Food bloggers, have you experienced traffic loss after the recent Google updates? Are you feeling confused about how to move forward? I get it. I have been a food blogger for nearly 14 years, and I've been through the ringer with industry changes and business changes. You name it, I have been there. When I look back over my tough times, the thing that pulled me out of slumps and traffic loss and disappointment was always people. We need each other right now more than ever. You are in this food blogging game for the long haul. I know you are. And that means you need to find people to collaborate with, to connect with, and to learn from. Eat Blog Talk has 2 great options for you coming up: the 2025 Eat Blog Talk Mastermind groups and in-person retreats. We are now taking applications for the 2025 Mastermind groups. This year, we're splitting the groups in 2. It'll be intermediate and advanced and beginner. We also lower the price to accommodate traffic and revenue dips a lot of us are experiencing. Apply now, as the first 4 people let into the group will receive 20% off the whole year. Go to eatblogtalk.com/mastermind to apply today. And there are still a few spots remaining for the 2024 fall retreat, which is also discounted this year due to revenue loss for so many. Join us in October in Minnesota. It is my favorite time of year here in Minnesota for 3 incredible days filled with laughter, great food, tons of learning and connecting, and honestly, they're just so much fun. You will not regret attending this retreat. Head over to eatblogtalk.com/retreat to apply for that today. I hope to see you in one or both of those spots. I can't wait for the next 12 months and to see all of your businesses explode. And trust me, having those people in your corner is going to help. Dee Rotman founded D & Sweets in December 2022, sharing baking recipes and tips with time-sensitive home bakers on social media. Having created over 100 dessert recipes, Dee launched her blog in April 2024 and is already seeing strong growth. She became an entrepreneur after having been a marketing leader in the corporate world for most of her career. Hello, Dee. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. I always love having listeners turn into guests. So happy to have that transformation in you. Happy to have you as a guest.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about how a relatively new creator can launch a new food blog and get really awesome results quickly. And then we'll talk a little bit about mindset too and how that plays a role. But first, do you have a fun fact to share with us?
I do. So it's kind of a totally random story, but when I was in my teens, I was shopping at a grocery store in a small town, And this complete strange man walked up to me and asked me to marry him.
What? Are you joking?
I'm not joking. And I was so thrown off, and I was like a teenager, that I just looked at him and I started giggling on the spot. I don't even know what kind of a mood he was in to do it. I don't know
Oh
what
my
happened in his life that day, but it was hilarious.
gosh.
And I never even gave him an answer. I just giggled my way out of the situation.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And something you've remembered all these years later.
Yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
funny.
That is
Yeah.
so funny. Yeah. Don't you wonder like what prompted him to do that? What
Yeah,
could
who knows?
possibly have been going on in his life? And he probably remembers it still too.
Oh, it's just so funny.
I love it. That is such a great story. Okay, so I would love to hear about your blog because I think this will lead really nicely into our topic today. So, yeah, just tell us about your blog, what it's called, when you started, anything else you want to share.
Yeah, sure. So I launched D and Sweets or dsweets.com actually almost 2 months ago. It was April 11th, I think, that I launched it. So brand new blog, totally in the thick of things. And I did not do it blindly, though. I'm not completely new to, marketing or anything like that. I've actually been in the industry for a really long time and not been a food blogger, but I've been posting on Instagram for about a year and a half now. So been kind of, building up the recipes over a year and a half and figuring out what people are liking. Also, I'm not a photographer, so it took me some time to kind of figure out how through videography to really get the right images that can live on a blog. And so really for a year and a half, even though I didn't have a blog, I worked really hard on getting everything together, whether I knew it or not, that I was doing it so that when I did launch the blog, I actually had some content to start with.
Yeah.
Which was really, really helpful.
So, kind of establishing that base for the skills that you need to grow a blog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you launched only in April of 2024. It is barely June and you've seen success. So, I want to hear how this happened.
Yeah. So, I am like beyond thankful. And I will say, as somebody who's launching, this is my second business. And the first business that I launched after I left the corporate world, which was like my world and my entire career. And I launched this other business. It was a men's skincare business. And it was so incredibly difficult to get anybody on the website because I thought, it kind of especially like hurt my ego because I came out of the corporate world and I was in marketing leadership roles and I'd worked for such great companies that I was like, I've got this down. I'm going to launch this website. I'm going to have partners. It's going to be great. So I had everything, a beautiful brand and a website, but I didn't have the audience. And so when I had launched, it was so painful to try to get anybody on the site. I was lucky if I got like 25 people on the site, like literally lucky and thankful. So this time I went through it backwards and I started to build the audience, as I said, on like social media first and then launched the blog. And that made all the difference because people were already like familiar with D and Sweets. And mind you, I don't have a giant following by any means. I currently, like today, I'm really close to like 35,000 followers on Instagram. So I'm not huge, but my reach is really good because I have been doing this for a year and a half. And I do come into it with, I think all that corporate experience that I had, plus the failure in the first business is what really set me up for success. So that when I did launch this blog, I wasn't going into it blindly, like there were things that were kind of on my back and backing me up. And that made a really big difference. And just in the first few days, like I was blown away to have seen that I had thousands of people on the site, even in the first 10 days. And now that we're almost at 2 months, we're still a week away, but I just hit like my first milestone that I really wanted to hit. And I'm not ready for like Mediavine or anything like that yet, but I did hit a really big milestone just yesterday. And I'm so, so excited and thankful. Yes.
Wow, this is amazing. I love how you worked backwards too. I hear so many people who start businesses or blogs or whatever, and they just like put it out there and just cross their fingers and hope that it's going to work, like what you did with your first one. Mm-hmm. But you really put some thought into this, which is so cool. So you started on Instagram. December of 2022, correct?
Yes, exactly.
And you just established a really good following. You mentioned 35K was nothing. I think that's a huge following. That's amazing.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. It's hard to think that when you
Oh
see,
gosh.
people who have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, and you feel very humbled by it.
Yeah, but most people don't. That's not the norm. Most people have 10K around there, less, or less. So you're doing great. And you really think that doing the social media first is what is helping your blog take off?
100%, because I would have never seen this many people come to my site so fast. It truly helps if videos go viral, but even just the normal videos, the day-to-day ones, people will show up because they like what they're seeing and they want to come to the website. And it's because I have this following and this reach on social that people can find me. Otherwise, if I had just relied on Google, I would have only had a few hundred on the site if any, at this point. Like, really, it would have been so difficult. And I think that a lot of people can get away with that, and they can do it, and they can build themselves up through Google, and all the credit to them. But I don't come from an SEO background or anything like that. So I knew that for me, it had to be a different way.
So how do you get people to click from Instagram to your site?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard there are a couple of apps, like LinkedIn is the one that I use. And it has been such a godsend because you're able to say this little blurb in your caption about this awesome recipe. And then you say comment recipe and I will send it to you. And LinkedIn will then take the, whatever the keyword is. If the keyword is recipe, then if anybody says that, then they'll send them a message directly on Instagram, and then people will click through that. And the click through on these is amazing. Having come from a marketing background, seeing such a high click through rate is insane. Like normally, in my corporate background, having worked for companies like Microsoft, Nordstrom, Eddie Bauer, you kind of get used to, if you send out an email, you might get a small click-through rate. Like sometimes when you have even millions in your database and you're sending emails, you can expect to see a 3% click-through on a normal email, or a 6% or something like super low when you're at a really big audience. But this is so personalized that at this point, I'm seeing like a 35% click-through rate through that. But also, I think just because like people are showing so much interest and they're commenting recipe over and over again, then that helps with the Instagram algorithm too, because it looks like more engagement. And so my reach is bigger because of it too.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So LinkedIn is similar to ManyChat, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do either one.
Okay.
I've heard great things.
Awesome. So that is a great strategy. Anything else you do on Instagram that you feel like helps get you traction?
Yeah. So as I said, like for me, there was no like giant spike, or like I did not, get to 100,000 overnight like some people do. For me, it's been really slow and steady growth. And when I look back on it, actually really thankful that it happened that way, because I could really kind of get better at my craft. And like I said earlier, I'm not a photographer. So if you would have asked me a few years ago if I would ever have a food blog that had photography on it for food, I would have been like, no way.
That's funny.
But I think because, I got to really work on the videography, and I have been lucky because I have a bit more time on my hands doing this full time, whereas for a lot of people, it's a side gig. So I've been able to really like put everything into trying to get these videos to be the most appealing and beautiful as possible. And if you scroll back to my very first videos on Instagram, you will see that although I thought that they were amazing at the time, they truly were not.
Yeah.
So I've come a long way. And I do think that putting in the hard work, like the things that I will see even 3 months from now and putting out more content, I will look back and be like, oh my gosh, I could have done this, this, or that. But you just don't see it until you go through the experience and spend all the time doing it.
Right. Oh gosh, that's such a good lesson, isn't it?
Yes.
You just can't see it from that vantage point. You just have to trust that you keep moving forward. And eventually it'll become clear. I think that is like the hugest lesson in food blogging, honestly.
Truly.
Yeah. So cool. I love your journey so far. Okay. So going forward, you're going to, I assume, continue to try to grow the blog, right? And traffic and all of that and get into an ad network. What is your plan for doing that?
Yeah. So because I don't have an SEO background, I've actually hired help. And I hired this lady who's going to be helping me part-time with a few things. So one, getting really smart. So as I said, I've been building recipes for like a year and a half now, and only some of them are likely to do well on Google. So I had her comb through all of the recipes that I built so far and prioritize which ones we really want to go after in terms of really optimizing those ones, putting them on the site, developing SEO focused blog posts. So that's one. And then the other bucket is looking forward. So when I create new recipes, what are the keywords that we want to target? And because I'm still going to continue to be social first, a lot of the recipes I'm going to do based on what I see on social, but I'm going to complement that and reserve a bucket of recipes that I'm going to create based on what she tells me is going to perform strongly.
Okay.
Yes. And then she's going to help me to really build out a lot of that content and the keywords. And then, obviously I will review everything and make sure that it's, things that I want to say on my site that makes sense to my brand. And then we'll put those on the site. And I think that with an SEO strategy, as you know, it's not an overnight thing. And I fully expect that. But I think that over time, we will be able to really build that up and get more traffic onto the site. With that.
That sounds like a good plan. And then I assume you'll continue on with Instagram. Are you looking into any other platforms?
Yeah. So although I started on Instagram, a few months later, I started dabbling in other platforms. So I'm on YouTube Shorts, and I only have one long form video on YouTube. So it's not really a strategy at this point. TikTok. And then I'm on Threads, which I actually found to be really delightful. I don't know. I don't think it really helps like drive business yet, but it's kind of a really like happy platform that I just truly enjoy. So I'm on there. And then I will have a strategy around Pinterest that I am developing now that's coming soon. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like building a house. And Instagram was like my foundation. And now we're like building the framing of like everything else that's going to go around it. And these are like all the pillars that are going to be coming in, and we're going to fill them in over time. It's really like a patience game, I feel like.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a good perspective. Hello, food bloggers. Let's take a quick break to chat SEO and keyword research tools. We are now into the summer of 2024, and things are a bit tumultuous in the land of Google search and SEO. Am I right? Because of this, I have heard rumblings about people not using keyword research tools anymore. I think if you're doing this as a way to step back from the pressure, it's awesome. But if you're doing it because you don't think they work anymore or that SEO is dead, let me try to convince you to keep using my favorite tool, RankIQ. If there is any keyword research tool to use right now, I think it's RankIQ. Food bloggers are finding now more than ever that we need to write based on keywords we can rank for, and RankIQ is your tool for finding those low competition, high search volume keywords that will help you rank. People are still doing Google searches for recipes, and Google is still serving up food blogs in recipe searches. Don't forget this. Q3 and Q4 are right around the corner, so stay on top of that low competition content that you can create and get ranked for. Head to rankiq.com today to get started. Now back to the episode. And then Pinterest is huge for food bloggers. I think prioritizing that in your strategy when you're building your house will be important as well.
Yes. And I am all about realizing that there's only so much that I can do in a day. And I'm also really ambitious and impatient. I know myself well. And so I think for me, the real help is in getting other people who are really skilled at these things to come and help me. And so I'm actually in talks with the web developer who created my site for me who is going to help me to basically build the Pinterest strategy and help me to prioritize that sooner than later.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, you're putting all the work in and the energy. You might as well just create a well-rounded building. I was thinking house, but business too. But yeah, I think it's smart to think about all of those different ways to get yourself traffic. Are you thinking of other things too outside of traffic? So maybe like, brand partnerships, things like that?
Yes. So the brand partnerships that I do now and have been doing in the last few months on Instagram are really what's fueling the business. So I've been lucky to work with a few different brands who have just been so awesome to work with. And basically I, will show off their products or bring them in as a key ingredient into a recipe and show that in a reel and a story set. And it helps them, but it tremendously helps me to fuel my business and pay for all the help that I have gotten. And so I'll be honest, I'm not like taking any money home, but it is saving my sanity. And it's really, really helpful because I can do so much with it.
Yeah, right. And then what else are you looking into diversifying into eventually?
Yeah, so the other thing that I'm building out right now is a new affiliate program. And I got so lucky, and somebody who had worked with me when I was at Eddie Bauer a while back, and I'd hired her when I was at Eddie Bauer. She has been kind of following the blog and spending time like just trying different recipes on Instagram and letting them know how they go. So we've stayed in touch over time. And at some point I'd mentioned that I'm looking for help. And she seemed kind of open to the idea when I casually said, God, I wish I could have hired you to come and help me. And she was like, well, maybe I could help you. And it was like such an awesome, beautiful surprise and something that I feel like I'm so lucky to have. Even if I only have a few hours of her time a week, she is helping me to build out a new affiliate program that I can then bring onto the website and also share on my social channels. But she's also helping me with a lot of things on the site too that I don't necessarily have time to do. Yeah. And so she's just like an all around amazing person who can do so much. So that's why I feel I'm so incredibly lucky to have her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great when you run into those people who are unexpected, but just such blessings in your business and life, right?
Completely.
Yeah. So cool. Anything else you're thinking through when it comes to just building kind of the rest of your house as you put it together?
Yeah. You know what? There's something that I think could be really encouraging to other people listening because, as I said, I'm not a photographer and I've never been trained as a photographer, but the way that I get my content and my images is kind of a way to do things in a roundabout way that's not normal. So I wanted to share it here just in case it might be inspiring for somebody else. So I have gotten, as I said, pretty good at videography, and my photographs are actually screenshots of the videos that I produce because I edit coloring and everything in my videos already. And so I will literally snap a screenshot of like the right movement at the right point, and I'll bring those onto the blog. And I'm sure that years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, oh my God, those look so bad. But right now they're fine and they're working, and people seem to be liking the more casual photos that are more action oriented anyway. And so I just wanted to put it out there to encourage other people who may not have been trained in photography, but still want to start a blog. There are other ways to get your content out there that are not traditional.
I'm really glad you pointed that out because they're not just with photography, but in other areas of our businesses, there are ways to kind of shortcut the system that don't really matter that much, right? Like nobody's going to notice that probably, and they might even like it more. So you might as well try it and just see how it's taken.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm so inspired by all the success you've seen and the way you've just structured this and the way you're thinking forward to how to keep building that house of yours and your business. How much does mindset play a role? Because I imagine it does play a big role, but I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, like us bloggers, content creators, we spend so much time. Like it is so incredibly time consuming. And it's also really difficult being new in the game because even though I've been on like Instagram for a year and a half, I still consider myself very new in comparison to people who've been doing this for like 10 years, right? Or even more. And so it's really it's difficult. I think it's difficult because it's really easy to burn out. And then it's also really difficult on your mindset because you're constantly looking at other people's reels who are like 250,000, or they say things like, I have 3 million people on my blog every month. And you're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
shoot,
Yeah.
not there, not going to be there anytime soon. But I think the key is in figuring out where you're going to spend your energy and how to properly delegate and give away some things. So I think one thing that's really kept me sane is realizing that I don't have to do this alone. And so taking all the money that I made from brand partnerships, putting that into hiring the web developer to help me launch, the lovely lady from Eddie Bauer that I worked with who's helping me a ton, the SEO help. And even though everybody's only very part-time because the business cannot afford much more than that, being strategic about how that time is spent and who you're paying. So like, don't go with a giant agency and spend thousands of dollars on something that you can spend hundreds of dollars with a freelancer who's just as experienced and really good, right? So like finding the right people and spending your money really wisely in the beginning, I think is really, really key. So that like, if I had to do all this by myself, I would have totally like burned to a crisp by this point.
Yeah.
So I think that's helped a ton.
Yes, I think that that's one of the big hangups when people get started. It's not obvious up front how much work goes into it and how many things you have to juggle at one time. So I love your mindset of just like, okay, I'm open to finding people who can help me and fill the gaps that I am not going to fill, because we have how many hats to wear? Like about
so many.
1,000 at least. There's so many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even with the help, it's still hard to stay afloat.
Yeah.
Like there's still so much to do because I still create the recipes and I shoot the content and I edit and I post. So a lot of that could honestly be a very full-time job.
Right.
And so even when you hire, like take into account that you're going to have to review the things that these people are helping you create, and you're going to have to be there to handhold and provide direction and things like that. So carve out some time for that, to know that that's going to continue to be a part of it. And it's not just like I'm going to give you this and leave kind of a thing. They're here to help you, but you still have to stay in the game with them.
Yeah. One of the things that was a huge game changer for me recently was hiring a writer. That's something I hadn't done until this year. It was maybe toward the end of 2023, actually, but I don't know why. I just thought there's nobody out there who can write in my voice. And once I got over that fear of just like letting somebody into that part of my business, it opened up so much room for so many things. So that for me was a game changer. For you, photography, it might be like just getting a kind of an all around good VA or someone who can just do little things in your business, right? Or back end stuff. I mean, there are so many different things you could experiment with to start.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So many options.
Yes. And then I imagine you're the type of person to just find resources to learn and, you know, read. Do you read books and listen to podcasts and all of that stuff? Yeah. Because that's helpful too when you're growing.
So I think podcasts like yours are extremely helpful and has been something that really helped to push me to launch my website, because gosh, I was like dying to launch that website from like 3 months into starting on Instagram. And I just could not like push myself to do it by myself. And so I think that being a listener of podcasts like this gives you a different perspective on how other people have done it. And so that's been hugely helpful and encouraging. It feels like you've got other people who are in the game and have figured it out and are willing to share tips widely. And I think that that's so helpful. And the other thing that's been really helpful to me is I've just been trying to find like very encouraging videos to uplift me, whether it's like on Instagram or on TikTok, because that's where I spend a lot of the time. And I recently heard this lady explain things so beautifully, and I thought that it might be helpful to the listeners here too. Is she compared our growth for whatever it is that we're aiming to do between different kinds of plants. And she, had compared two different plants. I'll bring up an example of a palm tree versus a parsley bush and the way that they would grow. So when you first plant that seed, the palm tree is not going to grow in the same way as the parsley bush. And they're going to have very different ways. Like one of them is going to go a bit wider. The other one is going to have years to grow and become extremely tall and make such a big, impact, and is going to be seen so widely. Whereas the parsley bush is going to act very differently and may grow a lot more quickly in the beginning. And so I'm not really a plant expert by any means, but it really resonated with me because it really helped me to understand that although I'm not one of those people who had gotten 100,000 followers in the first, year or whatever, because I do see that a lot of other creators do. I know that I have gone through this entire journey, having worked in the corporate world and starting out with this first business that had failed and then being in this position now, because this growth is all going to accumulate and become something very different than what other creators are going to see in their world. And their path is so different than mine. And I think that that was just so helpful because imagine that seed for the palm tree would have never imagined how tall it could get over time, right? Or how it's going to get there. But I do think that that helps to really ground things and just understand that people grow in different ways and everybody's journey is a little bit different. And that's okay because you're a different person.
That was so beautiful. I love the plant analogy. That's something that a lot of food bloggers can relate to because it's like growing something in your garden, whether it's plant or fruit or vegetables. We all know that every vegetable, every seed has a unique story. So I love that you brought that to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Such a beautiful way to just think of ourselves as unique creators, right?
Yes, totally. I agree.
Okay, is there anything, Dee, that we have not touched on about your journey that you think would be helpful for food bloggers to hear if they are starting a new venture? Anything at all.
I think the other thing is, a lot of people can get demotivated by seeing others have so much, such larger success. And I think you should try to refocus that energy into something that is more helpful to you instead of being like, oh, I'm comparing and it's so difficult and where am I and where are they? Instead, turn that admiration and focus that into how can I best learn from this person? And I do that by analyzing the content and the creators that I love the most. So if it's another food blogger out there who I just love the look of her blog, or if there's another creator on Instagram, I just love the video and I think that they look so delicious, then to me, I go back and I truly analyze, what is it that made me so like this video so much? Why did I watch it a second time? Why does this blog look so good? What is it about it? And I truly will spend a lot of time just analyzing. And I think that that will help a lot. And it helps to refocus my energy so that I can make it more actionable versus staying in a very negative place of comparison.
Wow, you have such amazing, inspiring words to share. Thank you for all of this. What a great conversation for anyone starting, or maybe somebody has started and they just want a little bit of extra boost to their traffic or traction all around. So thank you, Dee, for all of this. Such great value. Do you have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to leave us with?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I learned, especially when I first launched my first business, is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because we all know that starting a business or owning a business, right? A lot of people have been in this for a long time. You don't always know what's exactly in front of you. And you can feel fear, you can feel anxious, you can feel impatient. But I think what really helps to ground yourself back is to say, I am comfortable with being uncomfortable. These feelings, they are a part of me, but they are not all of me. And I'm greater than these feelings. And when I say that to myself, it just helps me to have my back a little bit straighter and just remember that I have space in me for so much more than that, right? I have hope. I have dreams, I have courage, and it's so much more than just the fears and anxiety and the discomfort of not knowing what's going to happen in like 6 months or 5 years.
More beautiful words to end with. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
We will put together a show notes page for you, Dee. If you want to go peek at those, head to eatblogtalk.com/D Sweets. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find my blog on dsweets.com, or you can find me on Instagram, D_and_sweets, or just Google me, you'll find me.
Awesome. Everyone go check Dee out on all of her platforms. Thanks again, Dee, for being here. And thank you for listening, food bloggers. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. If you are craving accountability, focus, and connection at a low monthly cost, join the Eat Blog Talk accountability group at eatblogtalk.com/focus. I will see you next time.